Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in my series reading Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Without further ado, returning to Oliver Twist as read by Lord Naren White.
Nonsense,
Rejoined the girl coolly.
go on, Fagin. I know what he's going to say. Bill, he needn't mind me.
The Jew still hesitated. Sikes looked from one to the other in some surprise.
Why, you don't mind the old girl, do you, Fagin?
He asked at length.
You've known her long enough to trust her, or the devil's in it. She ain't one to blab, are you, Nancy? I should think not,
replied the young lady, drawing her chair up to the table and putting her elbows upon it.
No, no, my dear, I know you're not, said the Jew. But,
and again the old man paused.
But what?
Inquired Sikes.
I didn't know whether she might not perhaps be out of sorts. You know, my dear, as she was the other night,
replied the Jew. At this confession, Miss Nancy burst into a loud laugh, and swallowing a glass of brandy, shook her head with an air of defiance, and burst into sundry exclamations of
keep the game a-going, never say die,
and the like. These seemed to have the effect of reassuring both gentlemen, for the Jew nodded his head with a satisfied air, and resumed his seat, as did Mr. Sikes likewise.
Now, Fagin,
said Nancy with a laugh,
tell Bill at once about Oliver. Ha! You're a clever one, my dear, the sharpest girl I ever saw,
said the Jew, patting her on the neck.
It was about Oliver I was going to speak. Sure enough. Ha ha ha. What about him? Demanded Sikes. He's the boy for you, my dear,
replied the Jew in a hoarse whisper, laying his finger on the side of his nose and grinning frightfully.
He?
Exclaimed Sikes.
Have him, Bill, said Nancy. I would if I was in your place. He may not be so much up as any of the others, but that's not what you want. If he's only to open a door for you, depends upon it he's a safe one, Bill. I know he is, rejoined Fagin. He's been in good training these last few weeks, and it began to work for his bread. Besides, the others are all too big. Well, he's just the size I want, said Mr. Sikes, ruminating. And we'll do everything you want, Bill, my dear, interposed the Jew. He can't help himself, that is, if you frighten him enough.
Frighten him? Echoed Sikes.
It'll be no sham frightening, mind you, if there's anything queer about him. When we once get into the work, in for a penny, in for a pound, you won't see him alive again, Fagin. Think of that before you send him. Mark my words, said the robber, posing a crowbar, which he had drawn from under the bedstead. I've thought of it all, said the Jew with energy. I've had my eye upon him, my dears, close, close. Once let him feel that he is one of us. Once fill his mind with the idea that he has been a thief and he's ours. Ours for life. Oh, it couldn't have come about better.
The old man crossed his arms upon his breast and, drawing his head and shoulders into a heap, literally hugged himself for joy.
Ours,
said Sikes.
Yours, you mean? Perhaps I do, my dear, said the Jew with a shrill chuckle. Mine if you like it, Bill. And what?
Said Sikes, scowling fiercely on his agreeable friend.
What makes you take so much pains about one chalk-faced kid, when you know there are 50 boys snoozing about common garden every night, as you might pick and choose from? Because they're of no use to me, my dear, replied the Jew with some confusion. Not worth the taking. Their looks convict 'em when they get into trouble, and I lose 'em all. With this boy, properly managed, my dears, I could do what I couldn't with 20 of them. Besides, said the Jew, recovering his self-possession, He has us now if he could only give us leg bail again, and he must be in the same boat with us. Never mind how he came there. It's quite enough for my power over him that he was in a robbery. That's all I want. Now, how much better this is than being obliged to put the poor little boy out of the way, which would be dangerous, and we should lose it by it besides. When is it to be done? Asked Nancy, stopping some turbulent exclamation on the part of Mr. Sikes, expressive of the disgust with which Fagin's affection of humanity, which he received, Fagin's affection of humanity. Ah, to be sure, said the Jew. When is it to be done, Bill? I planned with Toby the night arter tomorrow, rejoined Sikes, in a surly voice, if he heard nothing from me to the contrary. Good, said the Jew. There's no moon. No, rejoined Sikes. It's all arranged about bringing off the swag, is it? Asked the Jew. Sikes nodded. And about? It's all planned, rejoined Sikes, interrupting him. Never mind particulars. You better bring the boy here tomorrow night. I shall get off the stone an hour after daybreak. Then you hold your tongue and keep the melting pot ready. And that's all you have to do. After some discussion in which all three took an active part, it was decided that Nancy should repair to the Jew's next evening, when the night had set in, and bring Oliver away with her. Fagin craftily observing that if he evinced any inclination to the task, he would be more willing than to accompany the girl, who had so recently interfered in his behalf than anybody else. It was also solemnly arranged that poor Oliver should, for the purposes of the contemplated expedition, be unreservedly consigned to the care and custody of Mr. William Sikes, and further, that the said Sikes should deal with him as he thought fit, and should not be held responsible by the Jew for any mischance or evil that might be necessary to visit him, it being understood that, to render the compact in this respect binding, any representations made by Mr. Sikes on his return should be required to be confirmed and corroborated, in all important particulars, by the testimony of Flash, Toby Crackit. These preliminaries adjusted, Mr. Sikes proceeded to drink brandy at a furious rate, and to flourish the crowbar in an alarming manner, yelling forth at the same time most unmusical snatches of song mingled with wild excretions. At length, in a fit of professional enthusiasm, he insisted upon producing his box of house-breaking tools, which he had no sooner stumbled in with, and opened for the purpose of explaining the nature and properties of the various implements it contained, and the peculiar beauties of their construction. Then he fell over the box upon the floor, and went to sleep where he fell. Good night, Nancy, said the Jew, muffling himself up as before. Good night. Their eyes met, and the Jew scrutinized her narrowly. There was no flinching about the girl. She was as true and earnest in the matter as Toby Crackit himself could be. The Jew again bade her good night, and bestowing a sly kick upon the prostrate form of Mr. Sikes, while her back was turned, groped downstairs. Always the way, muttered the Jew to himself as he turned homeward. The worst of these women is that a very little thing serves to call up some long-forgotten feeling, and the best of them is that it never lasts. Ha ha! The man against the child for a bag of gold. Beguiling the time with these pleasant reflections, Mr. Fagin wended his way through mud and mire to his gloomy abode, where the Dodger was sitting up, impatiently awaiting his return. Is Oliver abed? I want to speak to him, was his first remark as they descended the stairs. Hours ago, replied the Dodger, throwing open a door. Here he is. The boy was lying fast asleep, on a rude bed upon the floor, so pale with anxiety and sadness
and the closeness of his prison that he looked like death, not death as it shows in shroud and coffin, but in the guise it wears when life has just departed. When a young and gentle spirit has, but an instant, fled to heaven, and the gross air of the world has not had time to breathe upon the changing dust it hallowed.
Not now,
Said the Jew, turning softly away.
tomorrow, tomorrow.
And we'll go ahead and stop there with the end of chapter 19 for this week and pick up with chapter 20 next week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe
As it greatly helps the channel.
Light be with you all. Take care and thanks again.